How you guys doing? My name's Andres. I'm here to tell you about the best day of my life. It all started when I was a little kid. My parents and I used to fly like all over the place, and on this particular flight, I was walking. I was just a little kid, just walking around, just looking up, and the stewardess just looks at me and she's like, "Hey." She pulled me aside and she put a little pin on my chest, and I was like, "Oh, cool!" It's just like wings and stuff like that. I was like, "Oh, this is awesome." So she was like, "Do you want to go to the cockpit?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'd love to." So she took me to the cockpit and she introduced me to the captain. And the captain said, "Hey, do you want to sit right next to me?" So I was like, "Yeah, definitely." So I sat right next to him, and he showed me all the flight controls and stuff like that. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is awesome!" And I just couldn't believe it. I was like mesmerized. I couldn't believe that you could fly with this contraption. It seemed like like so complex, and I was like, dude, this is like alien technology or something like that. So, and that day I was like, man, I'm becoming a pilot. And, just a few weeks ago, my parents decided, you're going to pilot training. So I was like, I was stoked. I was like, I just graduated. I got this. I could do this. So, so I started training, and all I did was, just basic flight movements, how to fly the plane, obviously, how to take off and land, emergency procedures, stuff like that. And then came the big day. What the big day was the first day I fly by myself, which in aviation they call it your solo flight. And basically, for your solo flight, you have to do 3 takeoffs and landings. And I was like, man, I got this. I've been taking off and landing so much, I could do this. So I show up the first day, and my instructor, his name's Lou. He tells me, okay, this is what's going to happen. You're going to do 3 takeoffs and landings. Are you ready for this? I was like, yeah, I got this. I could do this. So then I got in the plane. I was taxiing to the runway. And what taxiing is basically, just driving around the airport, like a little car. But you don't drive with your hands. You drive with your feet. So I was just, driving with my feet. And I was going to the runway. And in my head, I was just, game plan. I was just getting stoked. I was like slapping myself a little bit. I used to play football and just slap myself and, just get pumped. And I was getting pumped. I was like, you got this, you got this. And I was lining up to the runway. Basically, when you do takeoffs and landings on the airport, you do something called the traffic pattern. So you take off, and then you do basically just a rectangular pattern. You just do a right, do a right, do a right, and that's your final approach. So I was like, I got this. So I took off, full throttle. I was pulling back. What I didn't notice is that my instructor, Lou, who weighs 200 pounds, he wasn't in the plane. And the plane, without 200 pounds, flies substantially different. So I was like, oh man. I pulled back and the plane just shot up. And I was like, oh dang, this flight is super weird. And it was like a rocket, it's just a little 2-seater plane, but it felt like, I was like an astronaut or something. So I was flying up, and you have to fly to a certain altitude, and if you, pass that altitude, you could get in big trouble. So I was getting a little high, and I was like, oh man. So I got low. It's like, I'm not about to get in trouble on the first day I fly by myself. So I flew a little bit lower. I was about right here, and I was flying on my final turn. Then I got to my final approach, ready to land, and I noticed there was like a big flock of birds just hanging out, chilling out, having a blast. And these birds didn't notice that there's a plane coming to them and about to rip them to shreds. And so I was like, oh man, just then like my stomach sank, and I didn't know what to do. And I was just anxious, And I was going to the runway, and I couldn't do anything because I couldn't honk at the birds. Planes don't have horns, so I was just swerving. I was like, oh no. But then I got past the birds, and then I landed, and bam, it was a big thud. It's like, oh man, it's okay. So I did my second traffic pattern, and then I landed again, and the birds, thankfully, they weren't there. It took them like 10 minutes to realize that a plane, came by. And then I did my final approach, and just a perfect landing, and I landed. And right then I could literally just smell like the airport. Airports have a distinct smell, and smell an airplane. I thought it was funny because, not only could I visualize myself being a pilot, I could smell myself being one too. So that was the best day of my life.